Good evening, everyone. At this time, we're going to initiate a public hearing that is required of us whenever we choose or prepare to do an additional appropriation. So at this time, I'll turn that over to Dr. Dykle so he can explain what we will need to take a vote upon tonight.
Okay. What we have tonight is a resolution for an additional appropriation. It's in two different funds. One is the school pension debt fund, and we're asking for a public hearing for $123,288. Thank you. And also to appropriate the full rainy day fund, just in case if we need it, of $4,285,384. That'll stop us from having to come back later in the year to appropriate it again and do another additional appropriation. So the school pension debt fund for $123,288, we just feel that they picked up the wrong number. The money's there. There's no increase in taxes or anything like that to the taxpayers. And then the rainy day fund, that's what money we already have there. So I'm here to answer any questions.
Does anyone from the public have a question or a comment?
Okay, we're done.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Then we'll come back later for the resolution.
And so at this time, we will close the public hearing. We thank you for being here for that. We'll move right on into our regular board meeting. Renee, if you would show everyone present, please. And if you would join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're going to start out with board salutes this evening. And we actually have a very special recognition of our retirees tonight. These folks, they're not all here, but we have 42 employees who will or have retired as of the end of the 2012-13 school year. These 42 employees have a total of 1,196 years of service to Greater Clark County Schools and our children.
Yeah.
Wow. What I will do is read off the names of those that we know are here. And if you would, when your name is read, please come up. We have a lifetime pass for you to be able to continue to come and support our schools and our students. And then after you've received your pass, if you would just kind of shuffle through to the front of the room. When we're all done, we're going to take some pictures. So I just want to say thank you for your dedicated service to Greater Clark and to our students. First is Deborah Adkins, teacher from Bridgepoint Elementary, 24 years of service. Sue Anderson, teacher, Maple Elementary, with 40 years of service.
Sue was already given a lifetime pass for serving on the strategic planning committee, so we didn't forget her.
Carolyn Barrett, teacher, Bridgepoint Elementary, 40 years of service. Next is Stephen Byers, teacher, River Valley Middle, 40 years of service. Next is Mr. Ron Denman, teacher, Bridgepoint Elementary, 27 years of service. Looks like we're going to have a lot of new blood at Bridgepoint this year. Sandra Duvall, teacher, New Washington Middle High with 35 years of experience in service. Patty Howard, teacher, Charlestown Middle School, 34 years of service. Ed Meyer, teacher, Clark County Middle High with 35 years of service. Patricia Miller, clerical, Maple Elementary, 15 years of service. Michael Schneider, teacher, New Washington Middle High, 26 years of service. Wow. Mr. John Train, teacher, Parkview Middle School, 24 years of service. Sorry. Betty Smith, cafeteria, Charlestown Middle School, 19 years of service. Very important job, Miss Betty. If we don't feed them, we can't much teach them, can we? Terry White, teacher, New Washington Middle High, 31 years of service. Looks like Ben Ledbetter's going to have a building year too. Stephen Wright, teacher, New Washington Middle High, 29 years of service. Did we miss anyone? Linda Balmer, paraeducator, Charlestown High School, 19 years. Ma'am, what's your last name? I'm sorry. Howard. We've got another Howard. Mary Ruth, paraeducator from Maple with 20 years of service.
If I could, there's a lot of experience up here, but more importantly, there are a lot of big hearts for kids. And they've dedicated their lives to these kids, our most valuable asset in our entire community. We've had tremendous impact and influence on children over all your years of service. And as I think back on my own career, what I miss most is the ability to impact children on a daily basis. And you've done that. You've committed to that for so many years. Our community is far better off as a result of your commitment to our young people. So thank you so much for all your years of service to our school corporation and for what you've done to help all of our children. So thank you so much.
Good work, sir. Thank you, sir. No. Thanks, sir. Congratulations. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Sorry I missed Brian.
Patty.
section closes.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them all they can run for the hills.
Run for the exit, sorry.
While some of you are still standing, if you choose not to stay for the rest of the board meeting, now's a good time for you to head out.
Nobody will be offended.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Can I go?
That's a lot of you. There's 1,100.
Yeah, wow. Wow. Me. Lindsay lost 4 teachers tonight. Working toward it.
All right, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Pavey.
All right. Well, we've got a huge honor for our 4-star, four-star Utica Elementary School. Tonight, we'd like to salute Utica Elementary for being among 313 schools in the state of Indiana to be named a 4-star school for the 2011-2012 school year. Each year, the Indiana Department of Education recognizes schools that perform in the upper 25th percentile of schools in performance on ISTEP Plus and state exams, as well as their rating determined by the National No Child Left Behind Statutes Adequate Yearly Progress, also known as AYP. Congratulations to the students, teachers, administrators, and parents for their excellent work in achieving this recognition. Great job.
Is a token of our appreciation, and but what it really stands for is so much greater than anything we can put on a wall. As a high school principal once in my career, I just remember the first time our school was ever recognized as a 4-star school, and the plaque was really neat, but what it did for the self-esteem of all of our students and our staff and our parents and community was outstanding. So this is a plaque that symbolizes the fact that you're one of the finest elementary schools in the state of Indiana. And I know by being in your building and by getting to know all of you this year, how much pride you have in what you do on a daily basis, the impact that you're making on students on a daily basis. And we're really proud of you and of your school. Thank you, Mrs. Hartley, for your leadership, your staff, for your dedication to working with us. So thank you.
Ms. Perkins, would you like to recognize our Keep Safe RX PSA winners?
Oh, yeah, I would.
Each year, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration promotes National Prevention Week to increase public awareness of and action around substance abuse and mental health issues. The observance is an opportunity to join individuals, organizations, and coalitions in our community to promote prevention efforts, educate others about behavioral issues, and create and strengthen community partnerships. During this time, the Indiana Prevention Resource Center sponsors a PSA contest for high schools across the state, which allows students the opportunity to produce a video that highlights the risks of prescription drug abuse among Indiana youth. The board would like to congratulate 3 Jeffersonville High School students who placed in the top 5 in the PSA contest. Congratulations to Brian Fisher, who won first place with his video, Scratch Drugs Out of Your Life, and to Adam Ellis and Roy Birch, who took 5th place with their video, Adam.
All right, board, we need to approve tonight's agenda, and we do have a certified and classified addendum to the personnel report. So with your motion, please make sure that that's included. Is there someone that would like to move to accept tonight's agenda?
So
I'll move.
moved with the addition.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Satterley. Any questions or discussion? All right, all in favor? And opposed? All right, so that is 6-1. Then we need to move into the approval of tonight's minutes. And those are actually minutes from previous executive, regular, and special meetings in May.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Pavey. Is there a second? Mr. White, thank you. Any questions or discussion? All right, all in favor? And that's 7-0. Thank you. We have no public comments this evening, so we'll move right on into our consent agenda. Now we'll incorporate a motion to accept items 1 through 6.
Move to accept.
Thank you, Mr. Satterley. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Any questions or discussion on consent agenda? All right, all in favor? And opposed? That's 6-1. Mr. Satterley, would you like to take gifts to buildings?
Absolutely. Nancy's got my copy ready for me. This was a shorter list than we normally have, but we always have something. And once again, I don't even know what Charlestown Primary Clinic is, but I will find out. Because they've donated $1,620 to New Washington, which shows you that you can reach outside of your own community to another community to get them to donate to your school. And once again, Clark County Jail Commissary Fund, I think they've been on here for every week for as long as I can remember. So keep arresting them, but, you know. But we got $2,600, and thanks to the community for helping out as always. make a motion to accept.
Thank you, Mr. Satterley. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. White. Any further discussion on gifts to buildings? All right, all in favor of accepting the gifts? That's 7-0. Thank you. Next, we'll move into our action items for this evening. The first one is the HSPP.
I'll let Mrs. Schneff present.
Yeah, I'm recommending tonight that you accept the contract with Dr. Tony Shepard with GroupWorks. What we have been doing, and we do this with our physical therapy, our occupational therapy, and our speech therapy, those kids that are Medicaid eligible, that are receiving these services, we actually can bill Medicaid. And we have been doing that for several years, and we use those dollars for our kids with special needs. We now have, over the years, have been trying to figure out a way that we could build the counseling that we're doing. We have 3 social workers on our staff who go out and work with kids who need counseling in order to benefit from their special ed program. And the federal government is very strict on who can actually bill and what kind of supervision they need. And they require the HSSP. And that's a hard position to find. And so we finally were able to find somebody that could do that. He and I have talked a couple times now, and he's willing to provide that supervision to our social workers at a rate of $140 an hour. We both believe he can do that in 2 hours per month. The most he would ever bill would be 4. And what we want to do is try this to see if it's cost effective for us. We believe that we have many kids that are going to be eligible, and we're going to recuperate that money as well as some additional money every month. So we'd like to try it for this year, see if it works out, look at our revenue from it, and then if it's good, we'll continue it.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. White. Second, Mrs. Kraft. Thank you. Any questions? Discussion? All right. All in favor? That's 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Next, we have athletic training services agreement for Charlestown High School, Jeffersonville High School, and New Washington High School. If there are no objections, I suggest we take all 3 of those under consideration for one vote.
Move to accept all 3.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. White. Is that yours, Travis? Do we have any questions or need for further discussion?
Yeah, in reading that, in the for the athletic trainer at Charlestown High School, it says they will cover football games. And it doesn't talk about the other fall sports, it doesn't talk about winter sports or spring sports or anything. Jeffersonville High School covers all 3, and at New Washington it covers.
They cover all. He covers all. Washington.
Yeah.
Travis, did you leave something out of your...
I'm not sure what you're referring to, but on item 12 it says the certified athletic trainer will attend all home and away varsity football games, varsity soccer matches, home wrestling matches, as cover as many other home varsity sporting events as possible, being present at the high school for the 15 hours. That's what they've done for the last several years, so that's number 12.
Probably on the description, it says these athletic trainers will provide services to Charlestown High School for its varsity football program. So on the description in board docs, it just says varsity football. So there's probably that's where
got you. I was reading from the contract, so I apologize. Item 12 on the actual contract lists all of that.
Okay.
Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Any other questions? I know we've worked with all 3 of these trainers over the last several years, and I've not had one complaint ever. So I guess with that, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approving all 3 high school athletic contracts? All right, 7-0. Thank you. Next, we'll do Indiana University Southeast Nursing Agreement.
Board, we have a relationship with IU Southeast where we are basically providing a practicum type of experience in our schools for individuals who are being trained to be nurses. And so what it does is it gives them an opportunity into our schools and see what the life of a school nurse would look like. So it's a good partnership with IU Southeast. It provides a good experience for their students and it's helpful for our schools as well. So it'd be our recommendation to approve this agreement between IU Southeast and Greater Clark County Schools for their nursing program.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Kraft. Is there a
Second.
second? Thank you, Mr. Hall. Questions or discussion? I'm not sure. I do have a question. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to email you ahead of time. I'm not sure if it's for you, Travis, or for Sandy. The participants, do they sign confidentiality agreements? Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. All in favor? All right. That's 7-0. Thank you. Next, we have salary schedules for 2013-14.
And Board, this is an information item. It does not require a vote tonight, but we thought it would be helpful for you and for the public to understand what's happening with salary schedules. A couple years back, the teacher master contract stipulated that there'd be an adjustment to the salary schedules where the salary schedules would go to half steps. So for the first 2 years of that contract, and this is the end of the second year, that the salary schedules would move to half steps, and it was all part of trying to save general fund expenditure. And what's happened is the contract also stipulated that after those 2 years that there would be a return to full steps. And so that is what is happening. We're honoring the contract to return to full steps. What that does, though, and the reason why I think it's just important that everyone hears this, is that our expenditures by returning to full steps for all employees who are on steps, not just teachers, but all other employees, it's about $1 million additional expenditure. So we're honoring the contract, but again, as we're really striving to reach that balanced budget, is another one of those areas in which we respect our employees and appreciate them, and we need to honor the contract, but it's also important that everyone understands that it does add about $1 million of additional expenditure to us, and that'll be true for this upcoming school year and the next school year as well until a new contract is negotiated. So I'll answer any questions you may have. I just wanted to make sure everyone was understanding of the circumstances.
Questions? All right, we'll move on to action item number 7.
This time I'll have Mr. Hare come forward and make a presentation.
Thank you. This is, in my opinion, this is really exciting to kind of share with the board and with the community. This is going to be an awesome opportunity that we're going to be afforded at Jeffersonville High School. The recommendation tonight is to approve a MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, with Work One. We are partnering with Work One at Jeffersonville High School to start a JAG program, that's Jobs for America's Graduates. And this comes out of a partnership that Dr. Mellon made over the last couple of months, and then I've been able to be brought into the fold and work with Work One. And what we're going to do is, through this program, Jobs for America's Graduates, we will hire a JAG coordinator, and actually Work One will hire. We get to sit in on the interviews as we select the candidate, and they will come in and teach 3 periods, about 40 of our juniors and seniors next year, or this upcoming school year, and those juniors and seniors have to meet certain eligibility requirements. Most of them will be on free and reduced lunch, really focusing on an at-risk population. This coordinator will teach those 3 periods. We'll be able to work in smaller groups with those 40 students. And then the rest of their day, they're out working with the public, making connections throughout the community to form partnerships as we look past high school for these folks to come in and do, whether it be job shadowing or to do an internship or to find employment once they finish high school. So it's not just a dropout program, or a dropout prevention. It's really setting these kids up for life after high school. It gives them an opportunity to walk out, hopefully with a job, and then to pursue post-secondary careers. So they'll be working on applications for job applications, but college applications and college requirements, field trips, just a variety of opportunities. And there are probably, you have to help me, maybe 50 throughout the state of these JAG programs.
55 currently, and they're expanding.
Yeah. So very excited. You have the MOU in front of you. You know, basically our contribution is an in-kind contribution. We'll have a classroom, the desk, and the computer and telephone, that type of stuff. But the employee will actually be a state employee that will work for Work One.
You said it was going to be, that this person will come in and teach 3 periods.
Correct.
So each student will have 1 period of JAG.
Correct. Yes. So we'll break those 40 down into.
Yeah. So you have a very small class size
Correct.
for them.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's actually an advisory committee that is made up of some folks from Work One and then with the school. We met with probably about 50
Do
kids.
students get credit for this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's a full credit course?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Great.
The other thing too is the last half of the day, that JAG coordinator may be out in the community, as Mr. Hare referenced, but also they're acting as case managers, so they could be meeting with individual students during that last half of the day. So if there's a particular student who might be struggling more than others, then that case manager could arrange a time to meet with that student. The whole goal is to get those students to graduate from high school first and foremost, and then develop those job skills that they need to be successful. So it's a pretty neat opportunity for our students at Jeff High.
Was the number 40 set by
Yes, ma'am.
workforce development?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Or by JAG.
Okay.
Between the two of them.
Yeah.
The motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Travis, can you know where my heart is on this. Can you just talk to us a little bit about the selection process for the students?
Yes, and that's a great question. I was getting ready to mention it, that we have an advisory committee at the high school made up of a variety of teachers and counselors, the administration. I sit on it, and then there are some folks from Work One that will sit on it. We immediately went to the counselors and said, here's what we need, here's what we're looking for, here's the criteria, what have you got? And those counselors know the kids well enough. Here's what we can help, here's who we can help. We probably met with about 65 kids. We brought them down in small groups of about 5 and worked with that, and out of those 65, and that's a give or take number, there were about 50 that filled out applications, and then we are meeting next week to whittle that 50 down to 40 with Work One's assistance, because there is a very specific criteria that Work One is looking for as far as how these kids and their families fit in this program.
Can you talk about the parent involvement a little? Because that's a big component of it. It's going to require some parent.
Yeah, it is going to require some parent involvement, and you know, it really is working with kids that are at risk, that maybe for whatever reason, you know, mom and dad may not be there all the time to help support them. So this, as Dr. Mellon said, it's going to give them the opportunity to have a mentor, which you're familiar with, and to really connect with that person, and then help find them something after high school. And I think it's, I did not work with a JAG program in my future life, but we worked with several opportunities like this. And it's pretty neat when a kid gets to come home and tell a parent what a 401k is, you know, because we've been able to find something like that. So it's just going to be a wonderful opportunity for kids that wouldn't have this if we didn't have it in place.
What's the follow-up? What's the post-graduation follow-up? What's that like?
You know, and Dr. Mellon, you may have to help me because this is a new program for me. But my understanding is they will actually, once they graduate, follow them into whether it be the work field or the workplace, and then if that workplace does some type of post-secondary, they'll help with that, or follow up with them once they would start a college or a 2-year program.
They usually follow those students for at least a year after graduation, and then those students, if they need additional help beyond that year, then they're referred to Work One, just to another program that Work One provides to students. So the thing that's just tremendous is, as you know, our goal is all students will graduate and all students will be accepted to a post-secondary opportunity. So those kids who perhaps struggle the most, they'll be given every possible support system that we can provide for them to graduate first, but to secondly follow them not just up until graduation, but at least a year past, to make sure that they can transition, whether it's to an educational experience or it's right into the workforce. So this program is outstanding. The individual hired is a year-round employee. So they're working throughout the summer as well. And again, they're building relationships with the community and building opportunities and experiences, continue to touch base with kids and their families. So we had this in one other school system I worked in, and it was just tremendous. So.
And they won't be our employees that we will set in on the air.
Correct, yes, ma'am.
Are we going to have a plan to help parents understand what we're doing? Their parents, these children's
Yes.
parents,
Yes, that's a great question.
because they need to help.
We're a couple of things. We're going to take a couple of different approaches. One, we're going to invite them in to Jeffersonville High School to have some individual meetings as well as an overall session, if you will, meeting to explain the program. I think that a lot of those parents, for whatever reason, whether they're working a second shift or can't make it, this JAG coordinator then will have that list and be able to make home visits.
Good.
So our intention will be to get them one way or the other to let them know, what program they're in and really what their kids are going to be experiencing.
Right.
Because
Okay.
it's going to be a neat opportunity for those kids.
Thank you.
Travis, just one question. You were talking about we're limited to 40. It's in the future, do we have the ability to expand upon that? Or is it always going to be 40?
Well, it'll be dependent upon funding. The state, what's happened is the state has almost doubled its funding to this program. It's actually a federal program, but providing dollars through the state. So Work One was able to expand, I believe, from 55 current to, I think they're adding another 40 locations around the state of Indiana because of the funding that's been provided. So, if it's successful and depending upon funding source, it would be our hope that we would be able to expand it, because they chose Jeff High School because of the size of the school and the demographics of the school. But that also doesn't mean that we don't have students, more students at Jeff High, but also students at our other high schools that could benefit from this program. So hopefully over time we'll be able to expand the program out.
Well, I don't know how they couldn't say it's not successful with some of the, graduation rates and some of the results that they're talking about in here. I mean, it looks really successful. So I'm wondering how we can get that expanded into some of the other locations. So anyway, okay.
It might be easier to do now that apparently this governor is sold on patience. So does this meet that criteria?
And
Well, then,
the board is familiar. We're doing a careers class, and for all of our freshmen, I mean, this person could help with those careers class, facilitate when we bring in. I mean, really, there are a lot of different things that we'll be able to benefit, especially as we move forward with the college and career readiness.
This is the one positive education thing they're going to do in Indianapolis, so we need to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Hopefully, here in a second, we will be able
Well,
to.
Travis, I appreciate your presentation, and it looks like you were hung out to dry by Jacqueline James.
No,
it was supposed to help you.
She called in. She was sick, and actually, she's been a tremendous supporter. So
She could
she's done a
answer
great
some
job.
of maybe Mark's question a little more.
No, they called
direct.
first thing this morning and said she was ill today. So
Maybe she can come back later.
she's been great to work with.
We'll do some follow-ups.
Thank you.
Any further? All in favor? All right, that's 7-0. Thank you. Thank you, Travis. And now we get to vote on our resolution on additional appropriations, which is what we just had our public hearing regarding.
Move to accept.
Thank you, Mr. Shatterly. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Any questions? You have to come back to us before you spend all our rainy day, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Anytime the money goes in or out, I have to come to you.
Just wanted to make sure. All in favor? All right, that's 7-0. Thank you. And next on the rainy day fund expenditure, is there a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Pavey. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Satterley. Any questions on rainy day? And I'm sorry, I should have saved my comment for item 9, but all in favor? All right, 7-0. Thank you.
First time I've had 2 approvals and I didn't have to say a word.
Don't get used to it.
That might tell you something.
Are you saying I talk too long?
And now you want a loan out of rainy day.
Yeah.
See, I'm coming to you.
Ah.
One hand giveth, one hand taketh away.
What the administration wants to do is to going to Project Lead the Way. None of the money was budgeted this year in the general fund. So what we came up with, it was Dr. Mellon's idea, was to borrow the money from the rainy day fund. So we're looking for, not knowing exactly how much the equipment's going to cost. We have an idea on the professional development, but there will be ongoing professional development as more classes are added in the future. So we're asking to borrow up to $400,000 from the rainy day fund. It'll be paid back, instead of it being paid back monthly like we would get our state tuition support check, because the high school students that qualify that are in these classes for Project Lead the Way will get $450 per student from them, 1/12 of that every month. So we'll pay it back every 6 months, instead of it coming back to every month saying I need to put money back into the rainy day fund. So we'll just do it every 6 months.
Also, I'd like Mrs. Schellenberg to also come up too for a minute, if you don't mind, and talk a little bit about the program itself.
I'll just give a quick overview. Right now we're in the process of sending 12 teachers for training. So we have 800 7th graders that will get 9 weeks of a course called Medical Detective, kind of an intro course to a biomedical kind of field. In the 8th grade, then we have 800 8th graders that next year will spend a semester in a kind of pre-engineering course that will have 9 weeks of automation and robotics and another 9 weeks on modeling and design. And we're kind of hoping that as we introduce these kids in the middle school to these facets, then they'll move into the full programming at the high school level, which will generate the dollars that Dr. Dykle was talking about. Currently, we've got right over 200 kids that are at the high school level signed up for the Pathways to Engineering for Project Lead the Way on the engineering side, and we have over 300 kids that are enrolled in the biomedical courses that we're offering for the first time at our high schools. We're very excited about that. So it's a little bit of an investment on the front end, but we look to recoup that with the enrollment. And for really, they just had a couple weeks notice in terms of really signing up for these classes. This sparked a ton of interest by kids, so we're pretty excited about it.
Is there a motion?
Motion to accept.
Thank you, Mr. Satterley. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Questions?
Were those semester courses or were those year-long courses?
The high school courses are
Oh, high
year-long.
school. Okay. Yeah. And they are the ones that generate the
CTE reimbursement,
okay.
yes.
And I'd also like to make sure we come back maybe at the next meeting and just give you even a more expansive look at the whole program. But because of the training costs and the need to order equipment, we need to hopefully have you approve this so we can make sure our people are properly trained and we can get all the equipment ordered and be ready to go August 1.
We're also trying to do an inventory of our current tech ed equipment that we have. We have a lot of robotics, automation equipment that we've had in place. We want to make sure that it's current and will meet the specs for the new programs too. So we're trying to combine new and existing equipment.
Based on the numbers you provided, we'll recoup over half that expenditure the first year. And I'm just going to ask this, and it's prior to you, Dr. Mellon, but we had some courses before, and I think Amy's familiar with it, that would have qualified for this, but we just didn't. It was in Charlestown, and we didn't trigger them or mark them or however we should have done. And I only found out from the state level, but I'm sure you're on it. I'm sure you're on top of it. I just wanted to didn't want to come up and see that happen again. So.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor? That's 7-0. Thank you. Next we have our Food Services Management Agreement.
Mrs. Lewis.
Good evening and thank you. I'm up here this evening because I had the pleasure of going through and reviewing this contract renewal and to compare it from last year's contract. And it's my pleasure and the superintendent's recommendation that we approve addendum number 3 for the Food Services Management Agreement with Airmark Educational Services, LLC, to operate our school nutrition program for the 13-14 school year. As you can see from the background information, we tried to compare and contrast the differences. It appears in looking at the changes in the cost, that the increases are de minimis, and but the services that are being provided have increased. One change that we are making in this is to provide a donation of $10,000 from Aramark to the school corporation. $5,000 of it would be to cover catering events, and then $5,000 would be for the district's marketing fund, since we're always running short in the marketing, and we believe we need to continue to push that. We, I don't need to read through this, I don't think, all the different activities. They've increased the meal offerings at the schools. They've increased made from scratch food items. They provide free breakfast to all the students during the I-STEP testing. They did end-of-school cookouts and catering madness, and they also are a good community partner by participating in some of the contests and competitions that were offered in the different communities. So again, it is the recommendation that the contract be renewed at this time.
Is there a motion, Mrs. Kraft? You motion to accept? All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. White. Question or discussion? Comment?
Only if he keeps winning these contests. I'll ask the clerk to
Just keep winning.
Is it? Okay.
Board also, this is not directly related to this, but I received a great email this late last week from a parent that expressed just how awesome it was, and that was the term used, that we are providing to our students both breakfast and lunch during summertime. Again, that is a program that is being facilitated through Aramark. It's federally supported, of course, but it's been widely received, and being able to provide free breakfast and free lunch to any student. I believe they have to be under 18, or is it 18 and under? 18 and under. So and there are 4 locations.
6 locations altogether. We have one in Charlestown and 5 in the Jeff area, and we partnered with the YMCA for the summer camps that they provide. See whether we can find a group of students that were willing that we can justify the labor. Of course, we partnered with the Jeff Hill now and a number of activities here in the Jeff area without those students.
So I just want to make you aware. I know that you've heard all these good things too, but it just keeps coming. So I believe we have a great partner in Aramark, and appreciate your consideration.
Any further questions? Well, I was on the board when we made the decision to bring in Aramark as our management services company, and it was controversial and it was scary, and I just want to thank you, Robert, because you all have done an excellent job for our schools, our students, and our employees as well. And so we thank you for that. All in favor? 7-0. Corporate identity redesign contract with Ideology.
Board, as you know, we have gone through a strategic planning process. We've modified our mission, our vision, and Erin Bajorquez, who's our supervisor of community relations and public relations, she and I began to meet with a firm called Ideology, and an individual who works there in our meeting, very impressed. He had given a presentation as part of One Southern Indiana that was very impressive, and bottom line is we need some support in redesigning our logo for our school corporation. In the past, I think the last time this was done, it was about a $20-some thousand expenditure. For $3,000, Ideology is willing to help design the logo and so on that we're going to need as we are trying to just enhance what we're doing in our school corporation. So we're bringing forward to you a recommendation to approve a contract with Ideology for $3,000, and that will be for the purpose of rebranding our school corporation. And what I love about it is Aaron and our people will be part of that whole process as well. And we're trying to get this done so that by July 29th, opening day, that we're ready to roll out this new look for our school corporation.
Is there a motion?
Motion. Excuse me. Motion to accept.
Thank you, Mr. Pavey.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. White. Any questions, comments?
I just need to make sure again that we're going to do the achievement sticker for the back of people's cars whose child has achieved a certain level of.
Yeah.
We're going to do that because we're already doing that. Yes, and this year we didn't give it because we were in between logos. So
Right.
try to explain that to an all A student. But anyway, but we will be doing it next year. Just so on record as knowing we're going to do that again. Thank you. Because you don't make those kind of grades very easily.
Any other questions, comments? Aaron, I hear you're very excited at the prospect of working with Ideology. They've shown some impressive work. All right, all in favor? 7-0. Thank you. And then we have some first readings that we need to take a look at. Those will be brought back to us at our first July meeting for a vote. Sandy?
Thank you again. When we're introducing the new Chromebooks procedure, and it's part of our one-to-one policy, laptop policy, then we have a variety of policies currently in place that we originally developed in 1999 called acceptable use policies. We updated them in 2010, and we're going to update them again to bring them in line with our upcoming Chromebooks initiative. Just to highlight for you some of the changes, and this will be quick. I know it looks like a little bit quick. The 4117.5, 4217.4 are the two policies that are applicable to employees' use of the internet. And we are combining our acceptable use and our social media policy into one set of policies so that we don't have different ones we have to refer back to. In there it talks about we are going to change acceptable use to reasonable use. We want to make sure that people are being reasonable in their usage. And it reminds employees that state and federal laws and local policies apply to the use, and it requires reporting of unacceptable behavior online by students, just like they would report unacceptable behavior in their classrooms. It now allows Facebook, MySpace, and other social network sites to blend with our Greater Clark internet use. It prohibits extracurricular organizations from establishing web pages on the Greater Clark account without approval from the building principal and the Public Relations Department. We believe that not only will the buildings need to say okay, but our Public Relations Department will need to work with that and give that approval also. And it enlarged confidentiality requirements regarding FERPA copyright laws and prohibits harm to others via use of computers and Chromebooks. So that's those two policies. Policy 5148, that's terms and conditions for student use with parent signatures and initials required. And basically it's just changing the term, the one-to-one computer program, from laptops to Chromebooks. And again, the acceptable use changed to responsible use. States that homework performed on Chromebooks will be turned in electronically, so it alleviates the need for printing capabilities. And then we had the 5148 attachment to that policy, and it just changes laptops to Chromebooks and acceptable to reasonable. The other policy, 6162, for students, it's the similar changes in the policy 4117.5, except that it is directly related to students. Changes acceptable to responsible, and parent signatures are required. One of the things that I want to say is it does and is taking a village to put all this together. We were excited when Brett Clark came on board because we basically asked him to take his knowledge of social media and technology, look at what we had, see where our changes were needed, and then not to do that in isolation. We worked with a committee, and I'll just state their names: Barbara Berry, Aaron Borjaquez, Jan Finch, Marianne Fisher, Travis Hare, Dana Hilton, Amy Schellenberg, Kyle Wonke, and I also participated. So I thank those persons for their time and effort, and I thank Brett for his leadership in getting this together. This is the first reading. No action is necessary this evening. If you have questions between now and the time we take it for a final vote, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Any questions now? Comments? Okay, thank you. Next we have group life insurance.
Mrs.
Okay.
Lewis.
I'm still standing here.
Yes.
Bear with me. What happened was back in October of 2012, we had group life insurance, voluntary life insurance, and voluntary dental insurance, and our group health insurance that we were all looking at renewing. And somehow, we're not real sure how, the group term life insurance change did not get on the board for approval or in our minutes for approval. And the change was supposed to be effective as of January 1, 2013, and it was taking the rate for basic life insurance of 0.10, and for AD, accidental death and disability insurance, from 0.02, totaling a 0.12 per $1,000 coverage, and it took that up to 14.14 beginning January. We ended up having a meeting about this because what happened was when Humana began to check their payment system for the 14 cents, it was still at 12. So they came back to us through Cooper, and we sat down and had a meeting with the insurance committees and talked about the error. I did a lot of research. I looked back and made sure that it had not been approved before, and what Humana has done, because they realized that, you know, partly their error not following up at the first of the year to see that it was being paid, because they're done through like automatic payments, and they have agreed to delay the start of the increase until May 1st, which has passed, but we got this all resolved since the last meeting, and there's no retroactive payment required, so we're not doing anything retroactive to January 1. It will just start as of May 1st. So I think it was actually just a legitimate error on everyone's part getting that on there. So we're recommending the approval of the 2-cent increase per $1,000 coverage in group term life. You can delete and voluntary life insurance. I don't know how that got stuck on there. My error in not checking it real closely before this evening, but the voluntary life insurance has been previously approved. So this is just for group term life.
Is there a motion?
Move to accept.
Thank you, Mr. Satterley. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. So Sandy, and I didn't go back and pull the minutes, but we approved the increase on the Humana Health. We increased the voluntary life, which is what the employees pay. We increased disability dental, but somehow this particular piece wasn't in the minutes as an approved increase.
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
It was not recommended. It was not a part of the minutes. It just fell off the radar.
Okay. Do we know, and this might be a question for Tom, I know it only seems like 2 cents per 1,000, but in the grand scheme of things, what annual difference does that make? So 17,000 for the year? Okay. 2 cents. Doesn't sound like that much, but it is. Okay. Thank you for the explanation. All in favor? And that's 7-0. Thank you. Purchase agreement for alternative education, credit recovery, and health online.
Ms. Schellenberg.
We've been spending this year kind of looking at trying to reduce our software costs and become more efficient with the programs that we use. We have in the past been using products through Jefferson County Schools in Louisville for our alternative ed program, eSchool, at a cost of about $79,000 a year. And we were also using a product called NovelStar for our credit recovery that was running us much less than that, about $14,000. NovelStar is a product that's used by most of the districts around this area for credit recovery. It allows students who have already taken the course, done the seat time in the course, to basically take a pre-assessment and test out of particular units that allows them to regain their credits. And then we've also initiated our online health program. So we've had these online programs that we've been trying to manage, and we went out and kind of looked for a more efficient way to deliver. And what we found was that through revamping of the Novel Star program, they've been purchased by a company called Plato. They're actually transitioning into a company called Edumentum. We are going to be able to serve all three of those products, or our programs, our alternative ed, credit recovery, and online health, using the same program, same product, for actually $35,000. So we're saving way over half of what we were spending before. We will have cross-training of teachers in the background. The management system will be the same, but the product can be manipulated to provide and respond to the needs of each of those settings. So we're recommending that we go into an agreement, a one-year agreement with this, with Edumentum, which is Plato Novel Star, at $35,000 for the year.
Make a motion to accept.
Thank you, Mr. White. Is there a second? Thank you, Teresa. Any questions or discussion?
Yeah, why not a 2 or 3 year contract? Yes, the agreement. I see we save more money if we extend that out.
To be perfectly honest, it's a brand new, Edumentum is itself kind of a brand new company that's developed from all of the, from Plato, Novel Star, and we're a little bit just, we want to get our feet wet with the company first before we make the commitment. I'm not saying that we wouldn't come back next year, maybe with a multi-year, because ideally that's where we'd like to operate. But until we get a real feel for the management system behind it and see that it really does meet everyone's needs, I don't want to lock ourselves into that for a year.
Amy, how's the support handled? Is it part of the price, or is it a per hour amount?
It's part of the price.
It's part of the price.
Part of the
and
price.
You're comfortable with the support? And
They've been very
talked to?
responsive, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. All in favor? That's 7-0. Thank you, Amy. And last, we have a MOU with the Charlestown Police Department.
Board, as you know, we've entered into an agreement for an additional SRO through the Charlestown Police Department, and what we agreed to is that we'd pay roughly 50% of the cost of that officer. Since you approved that, the state now has some legislation out there that's going to provide some state funding that could help defray some of that cost for that officer. Well, I also have a lot of respect for the Charlestown PD because they went out and pursued a federal grant. And that's what they're doing. And so what we're asking for you to do tonight is to approve us basically being recognized as a partner for Charlestown Police Department to apply for the federal grant. So that is what the memorandum of understanding would be, is that you're recognizing we're partnering with Charlestown Police Department for this federal grant. Once this would be approved, then we would end up into another interlocal agreement with Charlestown PD. So hopefully that, if you'll just take this step tonight, you're just saying, hey, we agree and we support the Charlestown PD's efforts to pursue this federal grant. We're a legitimate partner in that endeavor.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Thank you, Mr. Satterley. Any questions? All in favor? 7-0. Thank you. Mr. Hall, we're at the point in our meeting where we take reports and requests. Do you have anything?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Perkins? Mr. White?
No, thank you.
Mrs. Kraft?
I need to know I do. Okay, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm a little concerned that we haven't sent a letter of appreciation to everyone that retired this year in Greer Park. I know that my daughter called to see if that was going to happen with her dad, who has put in 44 years as a contract driver, and they explained that no, since they were contract people, that they weren't going to do that. I think that's a mistake. yeah, it's personal to me, but there are a lot of people that have worked a long time to get kids back and forth to school safely, and they're retiring. People that work on contracts that have a long-term contract, not necessarily buses, but other things as well, Airmark people who, it doesn't hurt to thank people. It doesn't hurt to be that person who reaches out and says, we really appreciate what you've done. It's a letter, folks. I mean, that's not asking a whole lot. And I'm thinking we're showing that we're not very gracious, and I think we want to train children to be, and to be sensitive. And if we don't do that and show that as an example, I think that's a mistake as adults. So that's one thing.
Mrs. Kraft, before you move on,
Okay.
at our July 9th meeting, we're going to bring those folks in and recognize them, just so you know.
Well, I didn't know, but I'm thinking a letter. I mean, you don't need to bring them in necessarily. I'm just saying we need to think always of being an example for kids. We need to be that example, and if we're not, then we're asking children to be, and that they don't respond to that very well, I can tell you. And when are we planning to recognize our graduates from Charlestown, New Washington, and Jeffersonville in the paper? Because our other school corporations have done that, and we have some really powerful kids that have accomplish that, and we need to spend the money to do that. And another off-the-wall kind of thing, I noticed that as I was putting I use stickers, my return address stickers on my bills this month, I thought, why don't we do something like that? To someone who gives us a substantial amount of money, make some kind of sticker that they can put on with their return address or with something. Get it out there. Put our name. I mean, I can tell you that everybody that gets a bill paid from me gets an IU sticker on the now. Maybe that's not. I think it's kind of neat. It makes me feel good. But of course, I have to give them money to get it, but that's okay. Well, I think people maybe, that's just a thought. Just think about that.
Bring that up to ideology.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ideology maybe could do that.
I think Aaron and I will sit down and we'll talk. We'll follow up on the graduate recognition piece, but also everything with the logo and getting things out there and the best ways to do it. We'll follow up on that as well. And so thank you.
That's all.
Mr. Satterley,
Nothing, thanks.
Mr. Pavey.
How's our Chromebook implementation coming?
Hey, pretty exciting, really. Brett, do you want to say anything? I know you're sitting in the back of the room, but you want to give us a quick update?
We saw you back there.
Our plan is to roll out the Chromebooks to our students July 22nd and 23rd. Is that correct?
Fantastic. That's a great idea on Jeff Fest, by the way. I mean, what a way to introduce it to the community. You know, to have it. Are kids going to be down there as well, or is it just going to be staff, or how's that going to look? Just, yeah. Yeah.
I think down the road too, as we have students who become more aware and familiar and comfortable with the Chromebooks, and they can be our best ambassadors out in the community. So that's a good idea.
Are you going to be inside at Jeff Fest, or are you going to be outside? Okay. I didn't know if you needed more electricity or whatever inside. Oh, yeah, battery. Okay, yeah. Okay. Okay, great.
It's great. Exciting stuff. I appreciate the update on it. So,
And Mr. Pavey had no idea I was going to ask him to do this, but since he's the VP and he attended the ISBA regional meeting, I was hoping he'd give us like a 30-second briefing on how that went.
wow. Well, it's...
Don't be trying to kick me under the table.
Yeah.
That was good. Sorry you missed it.
Well, I always enjoy Dave Emmert. He has a unique perspective on legislative matters coming down, and he what I like about him is he sort of puts things in ducks and bunnies. You know, he doesn't. You know, you'll get the politicians come in and give you the spill, but he breaks this thing down with great ease, and you know, I mean, it's just there's a lot going on up there right now, and I think what I took back at is we need to be more involved. I mean, I think they were sort of begging us to become involved in some of the decisions that are being made up there and make sure that we're talking with our representatives and all, and so I plan on doing that, and but. There was a lot. I mean, it was a really good meeting. Got to meet some of our folks that are performing the same job in the district just like we are, and so I enjoyed it. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
For letting me pitch you on the spot.
That's okay.
And then I have a committee report as well. Our joint school boards, appointed a legislative committee, and Dr. Mellon and I attended last Friday's session on that. It started at 8:30, and I think we were walking out at 11. Yeah, so we were there for a while. We had a lot of discussion. Some of the largest discussions that we had were on the school resource officers, and we appreciated them for their work on that. The circuit breakers, we talked to them in detail about how hard that is hitting us in our debt service, and specifically our transportation and our bus replacement funds. We had a very lengthy discussion about that. We also had a discussion about local property taxes and the possible opportunity in order to avoid some of this property tax circuit breaker issue, is to give us our money and let us decide how we want to distribute it throughout those 4 funds, instead of giving us this amount for one fund and this amount for... Just give us our money and let us be responsible enough to decide where we need it the most. This year, we couldn't buy one single bus, and we really should have bought 4, really. So if we had a little more freedom, flexibility in how we can fund those 4 different budgets, we could have bought some buses and maybe put a little less money somewhere else. So we discussed that with them. They talked a lot about their summer committees. Apparently they do a lot of work in the summer, preparing for the issues that will come up in their next session. And I learned something political, and I didn't like it very much. There was a specific bill that in our last session we talked about, was a redevelopment committee appointment, a voting appointment, where school board members would be appointed to redevelopment committees and have an opportunity to actually not just show up and have a say, but actually have a vote. Well, that didn't even get heard. And I was like, okay, talk to me, guys. Why didn't we get anywhere with that? And here's what I found out. If a committee chair, and we're talking one person, if a committee chair doesn't want to hear a bill, it doesn't get heard. And so I was like, wow, so one person controls whether or not a whole entire bill gets heard, let alone presented and voted on. So we asked what we can do about that. And here's exactly what they said. And it goes back to Mark's comment about getting involved. Our House representatives and senators told us to elevate our issues through our associations. We need to contact our ISBAs and our IASBOs and our Indiana Association of Public School Superintendents and there's a School Managers Association, Dr. Dykewell, you might be familiar with that. We need to contact our directors and our representatives in these lobbying associations and elevate these issues, because apparently they listen to lobbyists more than they listen to us. So I want to get that out there. In July we're going to attend a summer ISBA Academy. Let's talk about some of this stuff with our representatives, because apparently they have some pull, and if they make it a priority, then maybe some of these things will get heard. So I wanted to update you on that. It was very interesting.
The key is to find the chairman of the bill that you want.
There you go.
And figure out who the chairman is. And then take them to lunch. Pretend like you're a lobbyist.
Lobby 'em, huh?
Good lobby.
We also talked about the $91.2 million in charter school loans that were forgiven.
And did you talk about the $3 million they still owe us?
That was an interesting discussion. I won't talk any more on that.
I thought it was you and not me.
Yeah, that was a fun conversation.
You know, the one thing from that, I think we're fortunate that our representatives here locally, I think, are very education aware and education friendly. I think, at least I sense, a certain level of frustration among some of our representatives because of the structure of how state government is run. As Christina mentioned, this whole idea of a committee chair and the power that one individual has, and I think even within their own parties, there's sometimes some frustration there, and so that's how state government works, and it's unfortunate, but somehow we have to keep finding ways to work around that to have influence. And you know, as Christina mentioned, the more we talk to people, the more they are talking to representatives. People want to be elected to office, and so they're going to start to listen to the majority of people that are out there expressing certain opinions. So I think one of the things is that we can do even a better job of advocating for education with our legislators, and the more we do that with our citizens, hopefully it'll make a difference.
I also just want to make sure our general public knows, much like our legislators, we're going to have a very busy summer as well. We have many committee meetings coming up. We have a strategic planning committee meeting this Thursday morning at 8 a.m. We're going to have insurance committee meeting, finance committee meeting. 5 of us will be attending ISBA Summer Academy for 2 days through the Indiana School Board Association in French Lick. We also are going to have a superintendent evaluation coming up in the next few weeks. So it's going to be a very busy summer for us as well. And I just wanted to make sure you all knew some of those things that are on the burner for us. Any comments, Mr. Hall?
Yep. A couple weekends ago, Memorial Day weekend, we had 3 graduations that I attended with several other members, and just hats off to 3 different high schools, the staffs there, the hospitality they put out to us, The organization they had for the ceremonies was just top notch, and the one thing that you got to look at, even though we have 3 different communities, we have the common denominator. We have a lot of great kids, and it was shown in the program, in the honors, in the speeches. It was a great, refreshing 3 ceremonies.
Well, ditto on that, but also, congratulations to our schools on a pretty uneventful ending of the school year. Having been involved in that in a former life, I know it can be very, very tedious, and I think we had a great closing of our schools, and not anything really terrible to say, which is always good.
Mr. White?
No, I don't have anything, thank you.
Mrs. Kraft, anything further?
No, I just agree. The graduations were wonderful, really inspiring.
Mr. Satterley?
I want to add on Mr. Hall's comment that Jeffersonville had 443 kids walk, is that correct? Which was the largest number in 10 years, with $9 million, I think, of scholarships. So, pretty phenomenal. That's it.
Mr. Pavey?
All made possible by 4-star schools. So thanks again, Utica Elementary.
Starts there. I just want to add that this year in particular was really tough on our teachers and our administrators, principals, because our last day of school was Friday, and we had graduations Friday night and Saturday morning. So I can't imagine how crazy the counselors were, how crazy getting all the grades put in, all the testing finished. So hats off to you for that, and just to remind you, next year you're going to have a week. You'll have a week between the last day of school and the graduation. So I know that was crazy and tedious, and we appreciate your hard work in getting it done. I'll turn it over to Dr. Mellon.
Just a couple more recognitions, to be honest. Our Charlestown softball team won a sectional championship, went up, and unfortunately they were not successful in the regional game, but what a great season for them. Our Jeff High baseball team won its regional yesterday and will play in the semi-state, ironically, against Indianapolis Cathedral, who they lost to in basketball in the semi-state, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. We had a athlete at Jeff High, track athlete, that finished 3rd in the state. Tyrell Dowdell, I believe is the pronunciation of his last name. He finished 3rd in the 400-meter run, which is pretty special. Getting around the track in less than 48 seconds. It'd take me 48 hours, maybe.
Just one lap, Dr.
Yeah,
Mellon.
well, maybe not 48 hours. That's a little exaggeration. And then also we had a girls track athlete from Charlestown by the name of Megan Brooks, who finished 11th in the state in shot put. So, you know, again, we're recognizing kids for all their great efforts. Obviously, we believe in a great balance. Academics comes first, but having those strong individuals in fine arts and athletics and all the other things that we provide for them, it's great to provide a lot of well-balanced young people.
All right. With that, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Satterley. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Any? All right. All in favor? Good night.